Just don't embarrass yourself by showing up, my sister said, talking about the Spain trip I paid for. This isn't your scene. My mom clinked her glass. It's better this way. I just smiled. That night, I canceled the travel itinerary and froze their hotel deposit. By morning, my brother called me 20 times in a row. Fix this now. I laughed and I paid for the whole thing. Flights, hotel, the villa, and Siggy's. Even a damn private chef for the first 2 nights. It was supposed to be a surprise for my parents' 30th anniversary. My treat. Firefighting doesn't make me rich, but I've been careful with money. I thought this might make them proud. That was my first mistake. The idea hit me back in March. We'd been pulling a guy out of a collapsed basement in Pico Rivera. And I remember thinking how short everything is. Life, family, time to make things right. I'd always been the one left behind. Erica had her tech husband. Jason was now bragging about getting into some crypto fund again. But I figured maybe if I did something meaningful, they'd finally see me differently. I booked the villa 6 months in advance. Oceanfront, 5 bedrooms, white stone exterior with sprawling terraces. The kind of place my mom used to point at in magazines and say, "Someday I found a local chef who used to work in a Michelin kitchen and paid half the deposit up front." My dad always talked about wanting to go back to Spain, and I thought this would be a perfect full circle thing. I didn't even tell them it was me who paid. I let them believe Erica had handled the planning. She liked being the center of attention, and I didn't care about credit. I just wanted them happy. Then came that dinner. Erica's house was spotless as usual, like a furniture catalog no one actually lives in. She had one of those abstract fireplaces that probably cost more than my truck. Everyone was dressed like they were heading to a silent auction. I came straight from a 48-hour shift. My face was still red from the heat and suit. Not a single person noticed. Jason handed me a glass of some overpriced red I couldn't pronounce and told me not to drink too much because we didn't need another firehouse story. Derailing the mood. Then came the toast. Erica raised her glass first, swirling it like she was in a movie. "To new adventures," she said, "and to leaving the past where it belongs." My mom nodded and clinked glasses with her. "It's better this way," she added, not even looking at me. I assumed they were talking about something else. Maybe Jason's new investment or whatever. But then Erica turned to me and said it flat out. "Just don't embarrass yourself by showing up. This isn't your scene." I blinked. Jason smirked. He said something about how this trip was for people who fit the vibe that they didn't want to be babysitting the working class in Europe. And they laughed. My mom didn't say a word to stop it. She just took another sip and started talking about how Erica had impeccable taste in accommodations. How Jason finally looked like someone who belonged in international circles. I sat there and listened, smiled even. Then I excused myself, walked to the guest bathroom, locked the door, and pulled out my phone. Canceled the flights. All of them. First class round trip. LAX to Barcelona. Gone. Logged into the booking site and froze the villa's final payment. The chef messaged me the next morning about finalizing the menu. I told him plans changed. I walked out of the bathroom. They were still laughing about some podcast Jason wanted to start. I didn't say a word, just grabbed my jacket and walked out the front door. The next morning, I woke up to 20 missed calls from Jason. No voicemails, just a series of frantic red notifications lighting up my screen. On the 21st call, I answered. He didn't say good morning. He didn't ask why. He just said, "Fix this now." I laughed, just laughed. Then I hung up. By noon, they all knew. Erica's message came in first. A wall of text, no punctuation, like she was typing with rage and zero thought. She accused me of sabotaging our parents' anniversary out of some kind of deep-seated jealousy. Said I was petty, bitter, and ungrateful. She ended it with, "You just want to ruin nice things for the rest of us because your life didn't turn out the way you thought." I didn't respond. 10 minutes later, a new message popped up in the group chat. That we'd made for the trip. This time from Mom. "Did you cancel the flights?" That was it. No hi, no context, no concern, just accusation hidden in a question. I didn't answer. Just left it there, staring at them. Then came Jason. Calls first, then a voice memo. I opened it mostly out of curiosity. His voice wasn't calm anymore. You need to fix this now. I don't care what your little tantrum is about. You're messing with something way bigger than you. He talked like he was handling a corporate emergency, not a family trip. Said the hotel was non-refundable. That our parents were humiliated. That everyone was packed and ready. And I had no right to pull the plug at the last second. I scrolled through his next 5 texts without reading. I already knew what they'd say. Around 1 p.m., my phone rang again. Unknown number this time. I picked up. It was the hotel manager in Siggy's. He said someone had tried to take control of the booking using a different card. Sounded confused. I told him it was intentional, that the trip was canceled. He asked if there was anything he could do to fix the situation. I told him no. By 2:30 the texts were nonstop. Jason again, Erica, my mom. Then finally my dad. He didn't text. He called once and went straight to voicemail. I figured he'd leave a message, and he did. I played it while standing at my kitchen counter eating leftover lo mein. I don't know what this is about, but it ends now. You're gonna fix this or don't bother showing up here again. Still no. Thanks for planning the trip, or this must have cost you a fortune. Nothing, just a demand. Around 4 o'clock, I noticed movement down on the street. Jason was outside my building. I watched him from my second-floor balcony. He was pacing and texting, looking up toward my windows. I didn't move, just stood behind the curtain and watched him like I was watching a stranger. His texts were getting more desperate. Come down. Let's talk. Don't do this. I turned off the lights and let him stew in it. He waited almost half an hour. Then he left. That evening, I turned on a nature documentary and made popcorn. Phone still buzzing out silent beside me. Erica tried to call 3 times. My mom left a message saying they'd never forgive me for this. That it was cruel, that I had destroyed a milestone. They still had no idea I paid for everything. That Erica didn't plan a single detail. That it was all me, every last euro. The next morning, I checked the group chat out of curiosity. It had been renamed Spain Trip Emergency Plan. Erica was scrambling to find a new villa. Jason said he was calling different airlines and begging for seat upgrades on points. My mom asked if the chef could still be contacted and if someone had his number. Then one message from my dad, short as ever. Michael, fix this. No. I muted the chat and threw my phone on the couch. I wasn't fixing anything. Not this time. I didn't hear from anyone for 2 days after I shut it all down. No calls, no texts, nothing in the group chat. Silence like a hell breath. I figured they were regrouping, probably trying to spin the story among themselves in a way that made them the victims. Maybe they were even hoping I'd cool off and come crawling back, apologizing like I always had when I ruined their plans. But by the 3rd day, I realized the silence was just the beginning. That morning, I opened my door and found a wine box sitting on the doormat. No note, just a fancy label and a red ribbon tied around the neck. It was a Spanish blend, same one Erica had gushed about during dinner, talking about how you can't really appreciate it unless you've been to the vineyard itself. She was always saying things like that. I didn't touch it, left it there until it started to sweat in the heat, then dropped it in the bin by the mailboxes. An hour later, Jason texted me, "Let's talk. We'll still go. Let's fix it." Like nothing had happened. Like they hadn't laughed at me and told me I didn't belong. I stared at the screen until it went dark, then put my phone in a drawer and walked to the corner coffee shop. The day after that, my mom sent me a photo. It was the 3 of them at LAX, sitting in the departures lounge with luggage stacked beside them, looking miserable. She didn't write anything, no caption, no follow-up text. Just the image, the quiet message. "Look what you did to us." I deleted it. They weren't missing me. They missed the vacation, the chef, the luxury villa with infinity pools and concierge service and a view of the sea. They missed the upgrades, the perfect itinerary, the 5-star planning, and they hated that it all fell apart because of me, the guy who wasn't supposed to matter. They thought they were being gracious by offering to fix it, but they didn't know the half of it. I'd paid for the whole thing, every euro. Erica had never even seen the booking confirmation. I handled it all quietly without fanfare because I thought it would mean something. That night, after a long shift at the station, I came home to 17 new messages. The first was from Jason again. A voice note this time, like he thought his voice would make it feel more personal. He said, "We're all under pressure lately, that sometimes words come out wrong, that maybe the dinner didn't land the way they meant." He suggested we could still go even if the original plan was off the table. He said, "Let's not let something small ruin everything." Small. That word pissed me off more than the insults at the table. As if what they said, how they said it, and what it meant didn't count. As if I should have shrugged it off, booked another villa, and carried on like a good little backup plan. But then things shifted again. That night, I got a security alert from the airline app. Someone had tried to access the account. Another one followed from the hotel site. A third alert came from my travel booking platform. Then a request to reset my email password. They were trying to take back control. I changed every password I had, locked down my accounts with two-factor authentication, even set up a separate email for my banking just in case. That's when I realized this wasn't about guilt anymore. It was about desperation. They were scrambling. By evening, an unknown number called me. I didn't pick up, but the voicemail came through 20 seconds later. It was Erica. Her voice was flat, careful, not panicked, not angry, just cold. "If you want to be part of this family, you'd better fix this. You have no idea what you've started." That's when it hit me. They weren't afraid of missing the trip. They were afraid that, for the first time, I wasn't playing the part. The reliable one, the forgettable one, the guy who showed up when no one else wanted to deal with the mess. And now that I'd stepped out of line, they were pissed. Not because I ruined their plans, but because I stopped being useful. I sat on the edge of the bed with the voicemail still playing. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel bad. I felt ready. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. They wanted war. Fine. Let's see how they like losing something that actually matters. The days that followed were too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, strategic quiet. The kind where you know people are moving pieces around in the background, waiting for the right moment to strike. I'd lived through enough fires and enough bad family dinners to recognize when the air starts to change. Then something I never expected happened. I was at the firehouse halfway through a slow Tuesday shift when I got an email from a boutique travel agency I didn't recognize. Madrid moments. The subject line read confirmation Wilkes family travel new booking. There was an attached invoice and a thank you note for finalizing the updated arrangements. I opened the attachment. It was a full itinerary. Flights from LAX to Barcelona. A different villa in Sitges, even more expensive than the one I'd originally booked. Personal chef, spa packages, private drivers, restaurant reservations. 5 travelers, and the reservation was under my name. My heart thudded once, then just went still. I scanned the payment section. They'd used the card I hadn't touched in over a year when I closed after a fraud warning when my info got skimmed at a gas station. Somehow they tried to reactivate it. It didn't go through because the billing address was flagged. But they tried. I called the agency. The woman on the phone was polite, almost cheerful, until I told her I'd never made that booking. She hesitated, then said the request came from someone who claimed to be my personal assistant. The name Cara Wilkes, Erica's middle name. They weren't just pushing anymore. They were pretending to be me, using old card numbers, lying to companies under my name to get the trip. They thought they were entitled to. When I hung up, I didn't feel shocked. I felt something else, like a switch had flipped. The anger wasn't hot anymore. It was focused, cold. I got home, pulled out an old hard drive and plugged it in. Last year, my dad had asked me to help scan some tax documents, sent me a link to a shared cloud folder. He never revoked my access. I hadn't looked at it since, but it was all still there. Bank records, investment statements, PDFs of signed leases. I found it about 20 folders in an active property lease in Santa Barbara. A sleek condo overlooking the water. The primary leaseholder was my father. The co-tenant, Jason, and the monthly rent was being pulled from a joint account with my parents' names on it. Jason had been bragging for months about how he finally leveled up, talking about building wealth, hosting clients on his private terrace. He even posted a video on Instagram from the balcony, tagging it #earned. He never paid for it. My parents did. I copied the file, then I backed it up twice, stored it in 3 different places. This wasn't leverage. Not yet. It was protection. That same night, a DM showed up in my Instagram requests. No profile picture, 0 followers. The account name was a scrambled mess of letters and numbers. The message was short. Hope you're enjoying your little power trip, Mikey. Watch your back. We're not done. I read it twice. Then I smiled. They still thought this was about Spain. That I just snapped over a canceled vacation. They had no clue how far this went now. No clue how much they taught me about who they really were. I screenshotted the message, reported the account, and sent everything to a friend I knew in LAPD's fraud division. I didn't ask for a favor, just told him I wanted it logged. Then I opened a new document on my laptop. I titled it Contingency. Under it, I wrote one sentence: if they want to play games, let's raise the stakes. And then I started planning, not out of spite, not out of emotion, but because I finally realized what they couldn't stand most: being irrelevant to someone they used to control. The idea wasn't revenge. Not really. At least that's what I told myself when I started pulling the files together. This wasn't about Spain anymore. It wasn't even about the insults or the manipulation. It was about making it stop. Making them realize they couldn't keep treating me like I was disposable and think I'd keep showing up. I started small. An anonymous email to the property management company that handled the Santa Barbara condo. I made it clean and professional. Subject line: misrepresentation. Fraud risk alert. I attached everything. A copy of the lease agreement showing Jason's name alongside my dad's. A couple screenshots from Jason's Instagram where he posed on the condo balcony claiming ownership, and a PDF where he had listed the property as part of his business assets on a public F-facing profile page. I didn't include my name. I didn't have to. 3 days later, I got a call at work. I was off duty drinking burnt coffee in the back room when my phone buzzed. Newport area code. The voice was polite but tense. A woman from the leasing office. She thanked me for my diligence and said they'd opened an internal inquiry. Apparently, Jason hadn't made the last 2 rent payments and their compliance department had concerns over the lease documentation. I didn't say anything, just thanked her and hung up. That night, Jason posted a cryptic Instagram story. Black background, moody filter, a glass of wine on a table, and the words, "People hate you when they can't use you." No tags, no names. But I knew exactly who it was for. The next morning, I opened the email chain from Madrid Moments, the travel agency that Erica used to try and rebook the Spain trip using my name, and replied. I thanked them for their help and asked if they would be willing to share the IP address used to place the booking. I told them it involved identity fraud, that I had documentation, and that the attempted transaction had been made under false pretenses. They sent it to me later that afternoon. The IP traced back to an address in Newport Beach, Erica's house. They hadn't stopped. Even after I cut off the trip, even after the missed calls and ignored texts, they kept pushing. Erica had gone behind my back again, pretending to be my assistant again to force the vacation back into existence. So, I printed everything. Emails, screenshots, IP trace, booking forms, all of it. I put it into a manila envelope and mailed it directly to my parents' house. No return address, just a single piece of paper folded on top of the stack. It said, "You wanted to know what selfish looks like." I figured they'd scream at each other before calling me, but I didn't hear anything for 2 full days. No calls, no texts, nothing. Then something strange happened. An email showed up in my inbox with the subject line, "Will's Family Trust. Update required." I almost ignored it, but then I opened it and saw that it was real. It came from a firm I recognized, my dad's accountant. It was a shared file request asking for documentation regarding recent financial activity related to external parties. My name wasn't even in the body of the email. They were covering themselves. Jason's rent, Erica's attempted fraud, the villa cancellations, all of it was a liability. Now, my parents had probably realized how exposed they were, and now they were scrambling to protect the family money, but it was too late. That night, I got the call. My mom, first one in over a week. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. Said, "Michael, we need to talk. This is getting out of control. Please just call me back. That would have hit me a few months ago. Would have made me think I went too far. But this time it felt like exactly what it was. A plea to put the pieces back together so they didn't have to deal with the fallout. Then a few hours later, a message came from Erica. No threats, no blame, just 4 words. We need each other now. I read it 3 times. Not because I believed it, but because I realized something must have happened. Something real. Something they couldn't fix without me. When Erica sent that message, we need each other now, I ignored it. At first, I figured it was another tactic, a different flavor of guilt. But later that night, after I closed the station for the day, I saw 3 more missed calls from my mom and 1 text from my dad. Just 1 line. Let's talk in person. I didn't answer, but I drove to their house the next morning anyway. It was quiet when I got there. My dad opened the door. He didn't say anything, just stepped aside and let me in. My mom was at the table. Jason and Erica were already sitting across from each other, not speaking, both looking like they'd barely slept. For once, no one was smug. No one was drinking wine or pretending things were normal. I sat down and waited. Erica spoke first. She admitted she used my name to try and rebook the trip. Claimed she thought it was harmless and temporary, that she didn't expect the agency to flag it or escalate it. Jason followed, kind of. He said the lease was a mess and that he was working on a solution, which meant nothing. Then my mom said it. We're not asking for forgiveness. We're asking for a ceasefire. That was the moment I realized this wasn't an apology. This was a negotiation. They weren't sorry. They were cornered. Apparently, the leasing agency had pulled Jason's condo approval. He had 30 days to find a new place. The travel agency had flagged Erica's name and IP for suspected fraud, which made it back to her consulting firm. And my dad's accountant had found the trust exposure. If the agency pressed charges, it could have affected their investments. All of it came back to one truth. They needed me to make it stop. I listened, then I laid it out. I told them I wouldn't press charges. I wouldn't send the file to the authorities. I wouldn't expose the financial records, but I wasn't going to pretend things hadn't changed. They had. From now on, there would be no favors, no blank checks, no last-minute rescues. If they wanted to see me, they could call. If they wanted to fix things, they could show up. But the dynamic, the idea that I was the background character in their perfect little movie, that was done. My mom nodded slowly. Jason didn't say a word. Erica looked away. Then something surprising happened. My dad leaned forward and said, "Then let's reset clean slate." I thought he was mocking me. But then he stood up, walked to the kitchen and came back with a small box. He set it on the table and opened it. Inside was a single key. It was to a cabin in Big Bear, one I didn't even know they still owned. He said, "You can take it. Make it yours. You've earned it." It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest thing to respect I'd ever gotten from him. A week later, we all met again. Same house, different tone. This time, no one blamed anyone. No one asked for anything. We actually talked cautiously about normal things, about weather and work, about how maybe we could find some middle ground if we stopped trying to pretend we were something we weren't. We never made it to Spain. The trip was done. The villa gone. The chef never got his moment. But something else happened. We figured out painfully messily that the only way to live together was to finally admit who we really were. Not a perfect family, just a broken one that decided for once not to keep breaking.